These are some of the most useless and forgotten weapons in Fortnite. Some of these were so bad that nobody even picked them up, while others had potential but got left behind. And trust me, the last one, it's actually hilarious. Let's get into it. All right, first up, we have the rusty can. And no, I'm not making this up. This was an actual weapon you could throw at enemies for a grand total of 20 damage. That's right, instead of using a shotgun, an AR, or literally anything else, you could chuck a rusty can at someone and hope they stood still long enough to take damage. The only real use for this thing? Meme. You'd see someone fishing it up, throwing it as a joke, and then immediately switching to a real weapon. The funniest part? If you somehow eliminated someone with this, they were probably questioning all of their life choices. Next, we have coal, which was quite literally a lump of coal that you could throw at people. Fortnite really gave us this for Christmas, and let's just say nobody was happy about it. Sure, it did 20 damage per hit, and you could throw it a little faster than the rusty can, but was anyone actually using this in a serious fight? Absolutely not. The only time you'd pick this up was if you were trolling your friends, trying to win a fight in the dumbest way possible, or if you ran out of ammo and had no other choice. If you somehow clutched up with coal, you were either the luckiest player ever, or your opponent just gave up. The chainsaw launcher had so much potential. It sounded like it could be insane, but in reality, it was an absolute joke. The chainsaw moved so slow that you could build an entire hotel before it even reached you. Yeah, it could break builds, but good luck actually hitting someone with it. It was the kind of weapon you'd use once, laugh at how bad it was, and never pick up again. The first order blaster rifle could have been amazing, but instead it played just like stormtroopers in the movies. Terrible aim and completely unreliable. Sure, it had infinite ammo, but the overheating mechanic made it impossible to spam. If you got caught in a fight with this, it was basically a death sentence. You could tell Epic only added it for the Star Wars collab, and didn't care if it was good or not. When Fortnite added the Predator claws, everyone thought it would be overpowered like Wolverine's claws. But instead, it was slow, weak, and completely useless. The tracking was awful, the cooldown made it impossible to chain attacks, and in a real fight, it left you completely exposed. If you used these, you were probably eliminated before you even landed a hit. The Fire Breath shotgun looked amazing, but when you actually tried to use it, disaster. It would light structures on fire, which was great for griefing enemies, but the damage was super inconsistent. You could hit someone point blank and still only deal single-digit damage while they one-pumped you. If you ever lost a fight because of this gun, just know that it wasn't your fault. This shotgun was just bad. The Storm Scout Sniper was supposed to be a big brain weapon. It let you see future storm circles, but the problem? Almost nobody used it for that. It was weak, clunky, and completely outclassed by every other sniper. If you saw someone using this, you knew they were trying way too hard to be tactical. The double-barrel shotgun was all power and no range. If you weren't hugging your opponent, this thing did basically no damage. And even if you were in their face, if you missed just one shot, you had to reload and pray you didn't get eliminated. It was fun, but let's be real. Nobody was carrying this over a pump or tactical shotgun. The goo gun was hilarious when it first came out, but let's be honest, nobody really kept using it. It was great for breaking builds, but once the novelty wore off, people went back to their real weapon. This was supposed to make it easier to hit people with explosives, but it just ended up being worse than an RPG. The shots were too slow, too random, and just not worth carrying. The 6-shooter was Fortnite's attempt at a cowboy weapon, but the fire rate was terrible and the reload was even worse. The only people using this were meme lords and Wild West fans. The thermal scoped AR sounded useful, but in reality, the scope slowed you down, the damage was weak, and it got destroyed in close-range fights. Nobody actually carried this seriously. The flint-knock pistol was great for movement, but a terrible actual weapon. Sure, it could hit hard, but the reload time was brutal, and if you used it wrong, you just launch yourself off the map. Fortnite gave us a weapon whose only effect was making everyone slip around uncontrollably. This thing was more dangerous to the person using it than their enemy. An SMG that you have to charge up before shooting? Who thought this was a good idea? By the time it started firing, you were already eliminated. Okay, it wasn't technically bad, but nobody was using the harpoon gun for real fights, well, sometimes maybe. But it was just a way to grab loot, pull enemies into fall damage, or troll your friends. The heavy shotgun was originally amazing, but when Fortnite brought it back, they ruined it. They changed it into a slug shotgun that shot one pellet instead of a spread. The result? It felt clunky, slow, and was completely outclassed by every other shotgun. Why Epic? Why the Storm Flip was one of the weirdest items Epic ever added. It created a temporary storm zone or removed the storm inside it, which sounds useful, until you realize it was completely unpredictable. Sometimes it helped, sometimes it just messed up your own rotation, and other times it just made fights more annoying. Most players just avoided it altogether. A revolver with a scope? Sounds cool, right? But here's the problem. It was slow, weak, and completely outclassed by literally every gun. If you wanted a revolver, you weren't picking this. If you wanted a scoped gun, you weren't picking this. Who actually carried this thing? The sneaky snowman was supposed to be Fortnite's winter version of the bush, but it was even worse. It made you a giant, slow-moving target, and anyone who saw you knew exactly what was going on. You weren't sneaky. You were just delaying your elimination. The mounted turret seemed powerful. It had infinite ammo, high damage, and melted builds. But the problem? You were stuck in one place, completely exposed, and couldn't move while using it. If you jumped on a turret in a real match, you were basically telling enemies, "Come eliminate me, I can't move!" Fortnite loves adding thermal vision to bad guns, and the thermal scoped pistol was no different. It had low damage, weird recoil, and was completely unnecessary. If you needed a pistol, you weren't picking this. If you needed a scoped weapon, you weren't picking this. Just like the scoped revolver, this one was forgotten instantly. The recycler was a cool idea, a weapon that sucked up materials and turned them into ammo. But in reality, it was slow, weak, and completely unreliable. By the time you sucked up enough stuff to fire another shot, your enemy had already eliminated you. The only trash this weapon was recycling was itself. The chug cannon was great for healing, but because it took up 2 inventory slots, it wasn't worth it. If you were carrying this, you were basically giving up a real weapon, meaning you were at a disadvantage in every fight. Healers liked it, but most players dropped it for something more useful. Traps in Fortnite were usually strong, but not the zapper trap. Instead of instantly eliminating enemies, it just zapped them slowly and gave them plenty of time to escape. It wasn't even scary to go up again. If you saw a zapper trap, you just walked away and ignored it. The stink bomb was great at making enemies move, but that's about it. The damage was too low, the effect was too slow, and most players just ran out of the stink cloud before it did anything meaningful. If you wanted to pressure someone, you were better off using literally any other explosive. The shadow bomb was one of those items that was good in very specific situations, but bad in general gameplay. Sure, you could use it for mobility, but you couldn't shoot or build while using it, meaning in a fight, it was just wasted space in your inventory. The new revolver was meant to be powerful, but slow and inconsistent. You had to hit every shot perfectly to make it work. And if you missed, you were eliminated instantly. Most people did not actually want this gun. It was just something you picked up when you had no other choice. The chiller trap didn't deal damage. It just made people slide around like they were on an ice rink. The problem? Most of the time, you ended up slipping off builds and falling to your elimination. If you trapped an enemy, sure, they'd slip around, but they could still shoot you normally while doing it. Basically, this thing was more dangerous to the person who placed it. The sideways minigun was supposed to be a better minigun, but it overheated so fast that you couldn't even use it for more than a few seconds. If you're gonna spam, you want a gun that keeps shooting, not one that stops mid-fight. Fire in Fortnite sounds scary, but firefly jars did so little damage that enemies just ran past them. If you wanted to burn builds, fine, but if you wanted to eliminate players, this wasn't it. The Portafort was great, but the Portafortress? Too big, too slow, and too obvious. It took so long to actually be useful that you could just build something better yourself. Another primal disaster. The primal pistol had a burst fire, but low damage, and it was still a pistol, meaning it was useless in real fights. This gave you thermal vision, but why would you ever need that? Enemies weren't hiding like in Call of Duty, so it was a wasted effect. Now this was one of the most fun things ever. The Cypher PK trap tower was a crazy, auto-building trap tower that instantly captured and eliminated enemies if they fell in. It was the ultimate gotcha moment, and watching players get caught in it was hilarious. The problem? It was only in a single tournament and never came to public matches, so it became one of the most forgotten items in Fortnite history. Cypher deserved better. This should have been permanent. We just went through one of the biggest lists ever of Fortnite's most useless, forgotten, and overlooked weapons. Some were fun, some were broken, and some were just downright disappointing. But now, it's your turn. What's the most forgettable weapon you remember? Did we miss any? Drop a comment and let us know. And if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on more Fortnite deep dives, crazy rankings, and epic content. This is ZamyFeed signing off. Catch you in the next one.